Kind of spoiled by it.
It's the things that you do, the things you do, babe.
Hi, everyone. This is Steph, the educator, and I just want to welcome you to the Essential Pedagogy podcast. This podcast was developed because really a ministry. I was inspired to get into education and get back into education after leaving. And the woman I'm about to introduce you to is one of the reasons why I'm back in the classroom. But I want to talk to you guys about what my hope is for this podcast. My hope is to, as a result of you listening to this podcast, that people within my profession and outside of my profession gain compassion for one another by getting an inside, close up view of the complex structure of education in America. So I came up with the Essential Pedagogy name because Essential Educator was taken. I know it's got a great ring to it, but I trademarked the name because I was just that serious about this podcast. But pedagogy is much less known, so I decided I would go with that. And pedagogy means the study and act of teaching. So, without further ado, I want to introduce to you a very special guest of mine that I've been really trying to get her to join me on the podcast for a while now. Her name is Meredith Gonzalez, and I really, really appreciate her. I got to know the Gonzalezes over the pandemic when I decided to really leave education. Um, I was helping different friends during virtual learning, and one of my church members knew I was doing that, and I guess a friend told a friend, and that's how Meredith got in touch with me, and I decided to tutor her daughter at first, and then I ended up tutoring both of her children, and it was such a joy to have her children in my life and her family really. When we started the tutoring sessions, it was you know, children were virtual, but I came in person. And I remember you were very nervous about whether I was vaccinated and very careful about who you brought into your home, which I completely understand. It was a very, you know, just unsteady and just tricky time in our lives. It's still pretty tricky, you know. We don't know what's going to happen, but we are pretty confident that, you know, we got a handle on, you know, what to do now. So when I started, um, there were lots of questions. I felt like I was on an interview when I first met you. I was like, okay, what should I say? I'm gonna bring my resume and everything. I don't even know why I took it so like that, but it made me realize that after about 18 years of um, doing something um, and learning and perfecting the craft, you really do become an expert, and you take it for granted. Um, all the things that you know about a certain genre of life, right? So a lot of things and a lot of questions you had for me about the education system, I was like, it's no brainer. You know, it's just this, right? It's just that. But I, it made me realize that everyday people who are not in my profession, I mean, we have lots of lingo, lots of acronyms that people just don't know what they mean why we have them, what's regulated by law, and you know um, where our time is allocated. So I feel like it was eye opener on both sides. I brought Meredith because I feel like many more parents could learn from um, just Meredith and her husband's learning style. Um, Not learning style, but their parenting style with their children. Um, they had so many things that I observed. Being in someone's home is very intimate.
Yes.
And so I, I found that I was in a situation where she was like, "I'm just sorry. I'm sorry." And I'm like, "No, no, no. I mean, you're in your home. You need to be comfortable. Don't worry about it." And she's like, "I'm sorry about the dog. I'm sorry about this." And I'm like, "No, don't worry." But I feel like, and I told Meredith yesterday that she's a stellar parent. There are a lot of things I observed in her home that I was like, well, doggone, my son is in his 20s, but maybe I should have done that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have paid more attention to this. And it's a really good thing. And a lot of things you did and do are very reinforcing
Thank
to
you.
having a good education um, foundation for your children. So let's talk about some of these things.
Let's go.
All right. So some of the things I observed in your home is that, you are a reader and you require your children to read to you out loud. Um, and this is not just sometimes, but in all stages of their schooling. Um, you control their diets, and we all could do better about what we eat and what we put in our bodies as far as food is concerned, especially when we're on the go. But I mean, I observe you control sugar with your children. um, you control screen time, just so many things. And I just want to know, like, and have you share with the audience, like, where did all this come from? Where did the know-how or want to come from, and how you raise your children?
I that's a good question. And I don't know if I have a, one thing answer. I think it's many things. I just, I want to raise good humans. I want to raise children who are self sufficient, who, are going to grow up to be able to support themselves and be happy. Whatever they end up doing and being, I just want them to be happy. Um, Fitness and health and good diet probably was not a part of mine and my husband's life growing up. And, when you look at some of our genetics, my kids are not in the best position given some of their family history. So it's really important to us to try to, not reverse, but they need to be aware. And so from a diet perspective, we just try to teach them, not from any kind of looks perspective or weight, but from a healthy. We eat certain things because they help our brain, they help fuel our muscles, they give us energy, so that they can understand and make those choices. And it's like if they're asking for cake or candy all day long, to kind of stop and think, well, what did I have earlier in the day? So we don't, when you say I control it, I don't want people to think like, we're so rigid, because there are definitely days and even weeks we could and should have been better. But it's just trying to teach them early about a healthy lifestyle and a healthy pattern, because I really believe if you feel good about yourself and you have the energy, it just makes you overall happier. And I just want to set them up for success. I don't want them to be on medicines if they don't need to be for their whole life, if it's something we could have taught them to be mindful of.
Yeah. I noticed that, and part of the controlling, what I noticed in your house is that your children will always, if they were having a snack or what have you, they always offered me something, and I'm like, no, thank you, baby, that's great. Or sometimes, I was really hungry.
You're very good about that. Yes.
We developed a relationship where I was like, okay, I'm having lunch. But what I did notice is that, when they poured themselves something to drink, they're very mindful about, like, let's pour half water and half of the juice.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, if you don't ever get a child's palate used to a certain amount of sugar, because sugar is addicting.
Oh, yes. I
uh,
know. I
very
know.
very addicting. Then I mean, they can thrive off of, half water, half, sugary drink. And I thought that was, and they did this with you not being there. I
Mhm.
mean, that was self-regulated. That means that they were taught about,
And I
sugar, what it does to
And I
the.
think it's just because we talk to them, I mean, we're open with them, we explain the reasons. And again, trying to do it more about taking care of our bodies so
Mhm.
that when they're 30, 40, et cetera, and why, rather than, you just can't have that. It's not good for you, but trying to get them to really understand. And I
Yeah.
think that will just kind of sit with them. And I've seen a couple questions come up. So my kids are 8 and 10, third and fifth grade, and I am not a stay-at-home mom. I work full-time, sometimes more than 40 hours. And it's just from like the food or meal prep. I mean, I spend time Saturdays or Sundays planning out my meals, and like I just try to be, mindful of like balancing it all. And I was telling Stephanie the other day, it's a journey because not every day is going to be great. There's going to be days they just eat crap. But if I look at it kind of over the week, over the month, that's what's helpful.
Yeah. And
And
I will tell you how it's very supportive in education. When your children are fueled by protein and wholesome foods, vegetables and fruits, then that helps for a healthy foundation for learning. When children are constantly on up high and lows from crashing on, hot Cheetos all day,
yeah,
or just very, very unhealthy eating, then it makes for hard classroom management when you have more than about 20. You have,
yeah,
27 children, and you have more than half of them dealing with, bad diets. This year was the first year that I had children who got letters from the nurse talking about cholesterol and
yeah, it's hard.
diabetes.
I mean, when we took my daughter, the doctor said, "Oh, like her cholesterol, I know, I guess it's a little high," and
Mhm.
told us she should be taking fish oil. So I'm like, "Oh, like the family hates eating salmon, but just about every Sunday night, about 90% of the Sundays, we're eating salmon." And I
Yeah,
said, "Is that, or she's not, she could potentially be on medicine for the rest of her life, and
yeah,
I don't want that if we
yeah,
can prevent it."
yeah. I had a student who got a letter. It was addressed to his parents, but he opened it. He's a seventh grader. He opened it and he said, "Miss Powell, what does this mean?" Like, he couldn't interpret it, right?
Right.
And I think he kind of knew because he knew the word diabetes.
Yeah.
Um, but the nurse couldn't say he was diabetic, but that he was in danger,
Yeah. I mean,
with because of his weight, his body,
yeah.
BMX, BMI,
We have a
BMI.
family history of that, and we're trying to, prevent our kids, slow the process, and maybe for their kids, it can be reversed.
Yeah. So I was a little uncomfortable, but he said, "Miss Powell, what does this mean?" And I was like, "Well, it means that, do you know what diabetes mean?" And he says, "Yes, I have family, so and so, my grandmother died of diabetes." I was
Oh,
like, "Oh my." Well,
yeah.
it says that you're at risk. It doesn't say that you have it. You're at risk, and you can control some of the things about being on medication, because if you control your diet and eating a real healthy diet, um, full of vegetables and fruits and things like that, then you can, you know, try to avoid that in your life. And he was like, okay, all right. He was very, very upset. And then I've had a student to be out because every 3 months she has to check her cholesterol
Yeah.
because yeah,
Yeah.
it's that bad. So
I know
people don't know that that is very important
it
in
is. And I mean, that's one thing. My kids have only gone to elementary school here, so I don't have a comparison.
yeah, you're
But
from
I will say,
California, right?
right, we were from California, but right before my daughter, my oldest, went into kindergarten. But one thing I was very impressed with the schools was they have a health and wellness class. So they're learning about like body parts and like mindful breathing. And I just thought, wow, it's and the whole child, and they have PE twice a week,
Mhm,
which I think I remember only having it once. And so I've just been very impressed and pleased with how they really try to take care of the whole child,
mhm,
the social, the mental, the emotional, as well as the learning, because I feel like that all kind of, goes together.
mhm. It does. Speaking of the whole child, I did notice that you control screen time with your children.
I
Not
try. I'm not always successful, but we try. I think my 8-year-old's on it now, just so I can.
well, yeah.
He earned it, he did his work and he did his
Yeah,
football.
and I know it was a struggle with the younger one more than the older one, but you do, and they're mindful that there should be boundaries. Lots of children don't know that there should be
Hmm.
boundaries with internet, with watching television, things like that. I think that's very healthy, and I think it's. I think there are children that are developing addictions
Yeah.
to the screen and checking on things and
Yeah. It's that instant gratification,
yeah.
and like that. I don't know. It's not a connection with anyone. So I don't know what the draw is. I think it's just these quick, they grab their attention real quick. And I think I mean, I see it in myself, right?
Mhm,
All this, access to all the media, it's just kind of taking our focus away. And I think what it is for me is I see my kids, enjoy doing art and creative stuff, but it's so easy for them to get sucked in once they're on the screen or they're watching a TV show or on the iPad, and we're trying to talk to them, and it's like I'm not there, or they just block everything else. And that just got a little bit alarming for me.
mhm.
And then realizing, okay, they're watching kid shows, but then these kid shows are using stupid, idiot, just,
Yeah.
things that the age my kids were can't really process the correct context or when it's appropriate or not appropriate to say those, or in what context. And
Mhm.
that just kind of concerned me a little bit. And, I'm working. So
Yeah.
I can't always like be right there. So we had to really kind of try to create some rules. And we felt like those rules as to what they had to do before they could watch screen time, or they couldn't watch screen time before a certain time. I mean, it changes
Mhm,
because our life changes. We kind of shift what the rules are, but it gives them like that expectation so they know what to expect.
mhm, mhm,
And like you said, kind of what their boundary is.
mhm.
Like right now, we recently shifted our screen time, so you can't watch it before 8 o'clock at night on a school
Mhm.
night. But
Okay.
your lunch for the next day has to be made, your homework has to be done, and you have to be showered.
We're
And
gonna get back to that chores. I like that. But with that screen time, what I noticed years ago, I noticed that sarcasm from children went way up. And that was before COVID, before, and I started watching what my children were watching, and I was like, this Disney show is not real. You know what I'm like?
right,
This
right.
is not real life. These people are pretending that they're in class and they're talking all kinds of way to adults.
Mm-hmm.
And so our children are learning that's how you speak to adults.
Yeah. They
That's how
can't like
you interact.
separate that real life, not real life.
Yeah. And it's you know, they make it funny. So when it's funny, the children assume that it's appropriate, and it's not always appropriate.
Right.
So I am really fond of you and your family about that. I noticed that years ago. But you talked about you honor your children's work and art, which I
Mm-hmm.
I recognize that because I saw it in all over the place, especially in the kitchen area and things like that. I mean, I think that that shows a child that you are interested in them and what they can do, and how they do it, and that you appreciate them as a person when you
Mm-hmm.
put their things up. And I used to frame my children's work, and I would have it out when people come over and they asked about it. I was like, that was when Evan was such and such age, and he created this painting then. And so I admired that in your household that you did that. I really think it builds something in a child, a confidence that cannot be taken away.
I agree. I think it just reinforces, in a nonverbal way, you're proud of them. You, like you said, take an interest in what they do. Um, it just builds their confidence because you're wanting to show it off and you're just proud of it. And, I recognize the hard work or the time they put into it. I mean, I want them to be proud of their work and feel good about, their work. And I think that's really what it is. I'm kind of like, sometimes I look around, like right now I'm sitting at a desk covered in like my daughter's summer camp projects and this. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm borderline hoarder, but I just can't get rid of some of this stuff today. I mean, like, but they worked so hard on it and
I
like
know.
creative. And they brought it home and we're so proud and excited about it.
Yeah. What I admire also is that you keep up with the school calendar. And you would all often share it with me, and so I know what was going on, and you participate in their activities. But that calendar, whew, let me tell you how many calendars I got. So I know that's hard. And dealing with a school calendar as an outsider from outsider of the teaching community, man, I can barely keep up with the calendar inside, right? So I just know that is such a hard thing for today's parents. How do you keep up with it all? What do you do?
I mean, like I got two calendars. I have the one on my phone, which is shared with my husband, so he can't say I didn't know, because he has access to it. I have a written calendar. I just have to look at it, and I've kind of gotten away from it. But I would try our Sunday evenings, sit down, update the calendar for the week. But I guess I make it a priority because I want my kids to have a sense of community and a sense of belonging. And they really love their school and their teachers. And so, whenever there's some kind of, event that they, do in the evening or a book fair or a family fitness night, they get a lot of joy from attending those things. And so I make it a priority. And I think it's important from a parent perspective just to be seen, observe what's going on, be able to meet their friends or the family of their friends, because I think it's important to know, kind of who your kids are hanging around and
Mhm.
start to form those
Relationship.
friendships, aware relationship, right? That's a better word.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's really helped them, even though they were each away from school for a year, because we kept them virtual for first and third grade.
Mhm.
Because of COVID, it was an option. Um, but I don't know, I make it a priority.
Yeah. And so we talked a little bit about you having routines, and you build rules and boundaries around the screen time. But let's talk more about the routines you've built for your children that supports adequate sleep and just the culture of making education important.
Um, so probably before COVID, there was really no routine. I mean, they were probably going to bed at like 9:30 as like a kindergartner. I remember going to the doctor and the doctor's like, so they get like 10 or 11 hours of sleep or 11 or 12. I'm like, 8 or 9. She's like, oh, okay. And I thought, oh no, I gotta change it. Because, when you look at those schedules, I thought, oh, we are definitely not hitting that at this age. They should be getting this much sleep. COVID time when they were virtual was probably more loosey goosey, but now I try really hard. We are up to bed at 8:30, but they've already been showered. So at 8:30, we're getting into bed. There's stall tactics for sure. But I call it a win if by 9 o'clock they are actively,
Yeah.
trying to go to sleep. But I always go up, lay with them.
Yeah.
Sometimes that leads to some chit chatting, but I just want them to take their best self. I come from a history of teachers. My mom was a teacher. My grandmother was a teacher. And so I think seeing my mom, how much of her own time and money and just, blood, sweat, and tears you put into the classroom, into the kids. And she at one point worked in a very disadvantaged school. And I just feel like it's my obligation, to whatever I can do to make my kids' teachers' lives easier, but set my kids up for success that's my obligation as a parent.
Really. Yeah, that's sweet. I feel like you model respect and you explicitly teach your children that when they are wrong, that they're not bad people, but they ought to apologize, right?
Yeah.
And I really admire that about you and your family. Now, I don't believe a lot of people in this day explicitly teach children how to apologize and um, and how to approach the whole, I did something not so great. It doesn't mean I'm not a great person. It just means that we're human. And sometimes we do things just not so great and that we have to apologize for that. I think that's a great trait to have in the schools because we're seeing so much bullying and just us dishonoring one another.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
How do you teach your children? I've experienced it firsthand where you made them do a video apology, send it to me. But like, what is your conversation with your children when you talk about when they do things that's just not, so appealing, or that they just downright didn't do the right thing?
Well, I mean, I really have to give my husband the credit for the whole like instilling the apologizing and not just saying I'm sorry, but acknowledging what you're sorry for so they can understand. But I try to tell the kids, people might not always remember what you did, what you said, but they're always going to remember how you make them feel. And really trying to just, make them aware of like, we want to build people up. We want to make people feel good. Everyone deserves respect. If you don't like or care for someone, you still need to be kind to them. And it's hard.
It is.
But so we talked to them. So like I remember making them make you videos to apologize for something they did. I can't remember what they were,
I
but
don't even either. I don't.
like, okay, Miss Powell takes time. She comes out here to work with you and to help you. And when you do this, how do you think that makes her feel? Or, if she put time into preparing this for you. So I don't know. I guess we just try to get them to think about how the other person feels. And it's kind of hard sometimes with them right now because they may have done something wrong or hurt someone's feelings without intending to do that. And so it's trying to teach them too. Sometimes if we apologize, it's not that you intended to do something wrong, but someone
they still felt
that way. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like the struggle right now. They're like, well, I didn't mean to do it. It's like, well, it's okay. If it was an accident, we still say we're sorry.
Yeah.
Because whether we intentionally or unintentionally did something, it hurt somebody.
Yeah. So that just brings me to you teach your children kindness directly. You also teach them tolerance. You are in a multicultural relationship with your husband. And so that just helps with, and you guys travel internationally. So you see how different people live in different parts of the world. And so I feel like that helps your children in the classroom deal with other children.
I hope so. I mean, I think since they were young, we always included them. If we had our friends over, they pretty much went everywhere with us. So I think, they probably from an early age also were comfortable around adults and having conversations with adults. And I think that we had a very diverse friend group, that we exposed them to. And so I think it's just kind of natural.
Yeah, I think it is very natural. I mean, when I had my hair in braids at your house and Mariella wanted her hair braided, I was like,
she's done it several times since then.
Come on, I'll braid your hair. So I just, we're running out of time. We've run out of time, but this could really be a part 2. I got so many more things on the list. You are, like I said, you're a stellar parent.
Thank you. We need to hear that sometimes.
I know, and no one's perfect, but you have attributes. And I think your children are going to go far. I think they're going to be very successful in our education system or any system that they choose to be a part of. I really do.
Thank you.
I'm just thankful that you came on the show today, and I really appreciate you so much.
Thank you. I'm so glad that we found you.
Appreciate you. Parents like you. I really do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You were a blessing to us. I can't. Very fortunate.
Thank you.
Without you.
Well, guys, this is the show. My goodness, 30 minutes go by really, really fast. And I just want to thank again our guest, Meredith, and we will have another show for you in 2 weeks, and hopefully we'll pick up our finances series when we come back. And I really want to talk to an administrator to talk about the earmarks in education and where things where they see money going to in the future, and how money has to be spent in public education. So stay tuned for that. I'm working on a couple of administrators to talk to me about that. But until next time, we'll see you later. Thank you for watching or listening to Essential Pedagogy. Thanks.